Welcome to Tiger Pregame Live. My name is Aaron Carter. Alongside my friend is my new co-host, Mitchell Soell, stepping in for Justin Bjorseth. It was Thanksgiving yesterday. Happy belated Thanksgiving, man.
Yeah, I mean, me and Aaron got to be able to travel to St. Louis this past week to celebrate Thanksgiving with my family. We were also glad to have him there, and it was just a blast to have him there. And got to hang out with my brother and his friend Ryan. Got to see my family from Texas. It was just an overall great week.
Yeah, it was great meeting the whole Soell family. So welcoming. Thank you again to every one of you watching. Ran a 5K as well.
Oh, that's right.
Good old turkey trot yesterday, as they used to call it.
Now it's a Turkey Day run.
Yeah, which I'm not a big fan of. I love the alliteration of names, especially for big events. But we did pretty well, right?
Yeah, Aaron here ran a 23-minute 5K, which I was very surprised by, and I will give him high praise for that one. I ran a 21:34. It was a great day for both of us. I mean, it was a great run, and I mean, we both ate a lot throughout the entire
exactly.
day.
Yeah, 3 plates downed at least, 2 on you. On your part, I was really impressed by that. I was expecting maybe one and a half more likely, because you usually don't finish like a second plate.
Hey, when it's Thanksgiving, your boy here finishes food. Okay?
Right. No dessert though. So I mean,
you know what? I didn't want the Oreo whatever cake thing that my cousin got for his birthday, but yeah.
I mean, I'm thankful that I got a spring break with you. So
I am too. Thank you.
On the other side of that, Mizzou fans are really thankful for this football team, and more so Barry Odom for what he's really done, turning around this football program from a 1-5 start to now a 6-5 record. So what we're going to do is break down a big Arkansas game today, Battle Line Rivalry, as they now call it. First up, let's talk about the quarterback edge that we're both given to Mizzou to. Full disclosure, all of these are Mizzou. That's why you see the big logo. Giving them everything in every sort of the way. So, Drew Lock, talk about him.
Well, yeah, so we're going to talk about Drew Lock. And I mean, Drew Lock is one of the best quarterbacks in the nation as of the moment. I mean, ESPN ranked him the number 9 prospect for the draft. I mean, this coming up year, and we're talking about how he's the most touchdown passes in the NCAA right now. He's 11th in passing yards, and it's because of that he's become one of the more well-known quarterbacks in the nation right now.
Yeah.
I mean, even though has the competition fared out as to other quarterbacks have been playing against? Maybe not, but I mean, still, Carson Wentz went to North Dakota State. Who gives a lick about that? That college, and yet he's still in the NFL playing his mind out at Philadelphia. Right. But I mean, you have quarterback. I mean, and we also were questioning his mind. I mean, is he have an NFL-ready mind? He's getting there. I mean, over the past couple months, we've seen him get better and better.
Progress, yeah.
Yeah, but he's got the NFL arm, but not the NFL mind yet. So it's just going to be. I give him the edge over Austin Allen for many other reasons.
So moving on to running backs, we're giving the edge to Mizzou here as well. Running back by committee. Why do you like the Tigers?
Well, I like the running backs because we have two of the best right now in college football. I mean, we have Ish Witter and Larry Roundtree the third. I mean, both of these guys ran for over 150 yards against Tennessee. Witter this entire month has had 400 yards rushing. Yeah. I mean, and you're talking about Roundtree. And Witter's got 800 yards rushing throughout the entire year, and Roundtree's already at 500 after Demaria Crockett went down. I mean, you're talking about 2 guys who have been very consistent running the ball very well, especially in this month of November. These guys have been very great running the ball, but also they're great receivers for a lot to throw to. Out of screen passes, out of dump passes, out of the backfield. They've both been done very well this year.
Yeah, and I was really impressed by the way Mizzou, their running game kind of rebounded after Crockett went down. Right. I was really expecting it to go downhill the way Crockett played at the end of last year and at the beginning of this year. Was looking like the number 1 back by far. Witter's really resurged himself. Had a good campaign last year, but continued that. And Roundtree really came out of nowhere.
We weren't expecting that from him.
Yeah, the freshman, he's played amazingly. He's a second Roundtree now on campus with the women's basketball player as well. I got those 2 confused once, I believe, and paid for it on Twitter. So kids, watch what you tweet out.
And the other thing is, talk about the comparison between Mizzou and Arkansas in this situation. Arkansas doesn't have that many. They have 2 guys that can run over 500 yards when you have Dave Whaley and David Williams. You're talking about 2 guys who have over 500 yards, but they're not big passing threats. They're not guys you can think that, they're going to get to the ball in the situation. They're only guys that you can count on running.
Exactly.
And yeah, as we move in from the running back to the wide receiver situation, why do we give the Mizzou the edge here?
Well, last year I would have given the edge just based on Jamon Moore's performance, 1,000 yards last year. But this year it's even more than Jamon Moore. Despite Jamon Moore's excellent performance so far, half-century mark for reception yards at 50, 857 yards receiving, and 9 touchdowns. But outside of Moore, it's really been Emmanuel Hall and Jonathan Johnson. The 2 speedsters on the outside. Hall a little bit bigger threat, more a red zone target. Jonathan Johnson just streaks past everybody with that speed. And both of those guys over 600 yards receiving and 5 and 6 touchdowns respectively. So Locke really being able to spread the wealth this year has really helped him come into his own, I think, and complete a better percentage of his passes.
You're gonna make me say this guy's last name, aren't you? And then you talk about those three. But then you have Albert. I'm gonna really
Okwe-Benam. I got you.
Okwe-Benam.
That's an assist.
Oh, I got it this one. Okwe-Benam. I mean, you talk about those. I mean, he and Moore had the same amount of touchdowns this year. Both of them have 9 touchdowns. And you talk about Hall, Johnson, and Moore. I mean, all 4 of these guys together have 300 yards individually. I mean, all of them have 300 yards individually, and all of them have over 5 touchdowns. I mean, so you're talking about 4 guys that Locke can get the ball to and consistently count on them to catch the ball, get great yards out of it, and you're talking about guys who can get in the end zone.
Yeah, and Okwe-Benam has really researched himself as, developed himself as the #1 tight end. We've really been worried about that here at Mizzou for a while since Sean Colkin left, the tight end of old. So consistent back in the day, but Okwe-Benam's really stepped out of nowhere at the beginning of this year and become a big red zone target for sure.
Right, and Mizzou has always had that tight end that they can throw those short passes to, and also, I mean, how we've seen Okwe-Benam do this already this year, have a couple streaks down the middle. I mean, we can have that tight end streak again. And we had Chase Kaufman years ago who could do the same thing, Mr. Hurdle himself. I mean, so I mean, it's been great to see Okwe-Benam do what he's done this year.
Exactly. Now moving on to the trenches, offensive, defensive line, my type of football. We like Mizzou in both spots here. Why do we like Mizzou, Mitch?
Well, on the offensive side to start with, I mean, we're talking about how last week, I mean, we were worried about this offensive line for the beginning of the year. We're worried that Locke was not going to get time to throw and not going to have the ability to get the ball off due to the age, I mean, the youth of this, I mean, the young side of this offensive line.
Right.
But I mean, last week we saw them not even allow a sack against Vanderbilt. Sure, Vanderbilt's not the greatest defensive team, but I mean, you're still expected to get at least 1 sack out of a game, but not even get one. I mean, to not allow Drew Lock to go down with the ball. I mean, that's pretty impressive in my eyes. And we're looking at the other side of the ball. I mean, we look at Arkansas. I mean, last week against Mississippi State, they allowed 4 sacks. Against LSU, I mean, they had Allen, who was trapped the whole entire game, confined and concealed in that pocket, and he couldn't do anything in there because he was not getting enough time because he was pressured so much.
And Allen was already hurt earlier in the year, out for 4 weeks in the middle of the season.
Right.
Due to that pressure on him, given to him by the offensive line. And just a football fan that, not doing any research on these two teams, you would think Arkansas would have the edge here. They had the largest offensive line by weight a couple years ago.
Right.
Mizzou, it's not about the weight, it's about the skill level. According to FootballOutsiders.com, they're 8th in adjusted line yards, 6th in their stuff rate, and 1st in adjusted sack rate. Like you said, they're not allowing a lot of sacks lately. And that's helping Drew Lock being comfortable in the pocket now. It seemed like before he was really just chucking it up under duress, and now he's able to settle in, actually survey the field, which is something that we've seen from Drew Lock more recently than the last couple of years. It seemed like sophomore, junior year Drew Lock, or excuse me, freshman, sophomore year Drew Lock was really just locking into one receiver, particularly Jamon Moore. Now, obviously, with the added weapons and the added time up front, he's able to buy some more time and really spread the ball.
You talk about skill over size. We're going to move now to the defensive side of, the D-line. What do you think? I mean, we're seeing that, a great defensive line for the Tigers as of late. Why do we give the Tigers the line?
Well, D-line Zoo is finally back with Terry Beckner Jr. and Marcel Frazier. Beckner was the 2nd overall recruit when he came here and had some trouble with injuries his freshman and sophomore year. But this junior year, he's really picked it up. Struggled at the beginning of the year. I was worried he was going to do the same thing as he has the last 2 years, but he actually has turned up a little bit. 6 sacks, 19 total tackles, leads the team. And then Frazier, also Marcel Frazier, the senior, 6 sacks as well, 15 total tackles. So those 2 guys have really held their own up front. But just looking down the road, 3 of those 4 starting defensive linemen are seniors. Beckner's a junior, could possibly go to the NFL this year, just with his talent level and prospective talent, ability to grow.
Right.
So, I mean, they're going to have to replenish like they have in the past, but they've shown they could.
I'm really praying that Beckner doesn't go to the NFL. But the other thing is, you talk about how good this defensive line is. I mean, this defensive line alone has had 8 tackles for losses over the. Had 8 tackles for loss last week against Vanderbilt.
Yep.
I mean, this is a team that has been able to get in the backfield and be able to make big plays in the backfield. I mean, they've been putting great pressure on quarterbacks, and because of that, they're throwing ill-advised throws, and we're getting interceptions, which we'll talk about later. But I mean, you're talking about Frazier, and you talked about Beckner Jr. You're talking about 2 guys who can get in that backfield, and they're going to be great NFL prospects when they come of age. I mean, it's going to be great to see how. That's why I totally agree with you in having Mizzou over Arkansas in this situation.
Sticking with defense, moving back a little bit to the linebackers and secondary. Let's start with the linebackers. We both like the Tigers here. Mitch, What's so special about those linebackers?
So at the beginning of the year, we were talking about how Eric Beisel was supposed to be such a big name for Mizzou, and every Mizzou fan here, I mean, he was at SEC Media Day and everything.
Yep.
Cale Garrett has been the star of this linebacking core for the Mizzou Tigers. I mean, the past couple weeks, he's been the leader of tackles. I mean, Beisel 2 weeks ago against Tennessee was second. But I mean, you talk about a guy who's been, I mean, Cale Garrett is the leader in tackles for Mizzou. I don't remember the exact number.
I got it right here, 85.
85. And you're talking about, I mean, Beisel, who's, I mean, a great defensive presence out there, being a great leader for this team as a senior. Right. But I mean, Cale Garrett has shown why Mizzou defense is what it is. I mean, has been known for what it is over the past couple of years. Cale Garrett, I mean, the past couple of weeks has just stepped it up. I think there's been 3 or 4 games this year where he has not had double-digit tackles and not made one big play throughout the entire game. Yeah. It's been great to see how he's been developing as the year goes on.
Right, and he stole that starting spot from a team captain, no less, in Beisel, which is even harder to do just based on his vocality and just his general popularity on the team. But Cale Garrett's a hard worker. He almost went to the Naval Academy.
That's right.
5 days later, Mizzou gave him a call, gave his coach a call actually, and he automatically went to Mizzou. Right. But Terez Hall, another big linebacker for the Tigers, 73 tackles and a sack. Those two guys in tandem, shooting up the gaps, have really helped Beckner and Marcel Frazier get some sacks.
Right. And now moving from linebackers to secondary, why do we have Mizzou, Aaron?
Well, recently they've been getting a lot of turnovers. You talked about it. Picked off Vandy 3 times last week, Tennessee twice the week before. They have 5 more interceptions on the year than Arkansas, 11-6. And as I said, 5 of those 11 have come in the last 2 weeks. Right. So recently they've really been picking it up, and I think that's more about the communication and just the general cohesiveness of the front line of the defense and the back line of the defense. Right. They're now in sync. When they're pressuring, they're also, the secondary is dropping back and ball hawking, which is how they've gotten some of these turnovers. Because these opposing quarterbacks now don't have time to throw. They're having to throw it up there, and guys like, who got a pick? Sherrills has gotten a lot of interceptions the last couple of weeks. He's really been ball hawking. And we saw a return for touchdown
that's right.
a couple weeks ago.
Just last week.
Yeah. So, I mean, they're showing they can not only catch the ball, but actually do some damage with it, which helps the offense, obviously.
You're absolutely right. I mean, you talked about Anthony Sherrill's interception for a touchdown. That was big for Mizzou secondary. And like at the beginning of the season, we saw them against even like teams like Missouri State. We saw them backing off and playing, I mean, giving them big gaps. And with that, I mean, wide receivers for the opposing team were getting short routes for big gains. I mean, it was something that you're making these secondary people to have to make big open field tackles. And we weren't able to do that. We were all worried about this at the beginning of the season.
Exactly.
And seeing how they developed, and I mean, you have DeMarcus Acey and Anthony Sherrill making big plays over these past couple games. I mean, that's why I'm giving Mizzou, that's why I'm giving Mizzou the benefit right here, because of these guys who are making big plays in the open field and making big interceptions and turning the ball over, like you said.
And I think those 2 weeks against Idaho and UConn were so important for this defense, just confidence-wise. They were able to finally pressure, as you said, get up there and actually play the wide receivers close, bump them off the line, and then those safeties coming in and swooping, getting the ball back. But those 2 weeks have been so impressive because the next week Florida, the next week Tennessee, the next week Vandy, they've been able to turn over the ball against better athletes. So
I mean, it was just great to see how, I mean, like you talked about, the chemistry between the whole entire defense is just really just meshed well together. I mean, especially over these past couple of weeks. Ever since Idaho, I think we've just been on the Tigers have been on an upspurt, and they're headed for bigger things, especially in these last 2 games.
No doubt.
I mean, moving on now from secondary to special teams. Aaron, why do we take Mizzou?
Well, I think it's just basically the return game. I mean, we all know how good Corey Fatoni is. 4th in votes for the Ray Guy Award, just outside of the 3 finalists. But me and you voted for him.
I was blown away. I don't understand. Nation, Corey Fatoni is the best punter in the I don't understand.
Yeah, I mean, it's record, I think, is part of it.
Right.
Struggled at the beginning of the year.
Right.
But just the net yardage and how many times he pinned the other team inside the 20 and the defense completely let them go down the field. I mean, that's not on Fatoni. He's doing all he can.
No, I mean, I totally agree with you. But you talked about the return game from Mizzou. I mean, I like Floyd. I like Roundtree. And they're both just very consistent. I mean, we saw Floyd last week at a return for a touchdown on a punt. And Roundtree's just been so consistent returning the ball back, not allowing it always to be a touchback. And I mean, whenever the kickers are booting it out of the end zone, but also he's just returning it out there, getting over 20 yards. I mean, averaging over 20 yards a return. And it's because of that we're seeing Mizzou just be just and keep getting better and better. And it's just in these simple, like small little details when it's return game and stuff like that. That small yardage does count. Don't let anyone tell you differently.
Yeah, and Jonathan Johnson was the punt returner at the beginning of the year. Had some fumbling issues. Floyd's gone back there and played very well. Punt return touchdown last week. They've really provided a spark to this offense. Moving on, lastly, let's talk about coaching. We're giving the edge here to Mizzou. Mitch, why do we like Barry Odom?
All right, well, we like Barry Odom because of one thing. It's how he's progressed throughout the year. I mean, we were all asking for his head at the beginning of the year. Every Mizzou fan out there was asking for Barry Odom's head because he was 1-5 at the beginning of the year. And we saw that, and we were all wondering, we'll let him have the win to Idaho because, it's a below-average team on homecoming. We want Mizzou to win on homecoming. And then every other game besides that, it's just been difficult for every Mizzou fan because we're thinking, that was a fluke against Florida. We're like, Florida just fired their coach. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, Tennessee, well, they're going to fire their coach if we lose to them. If they lose to us. We weren't expected to win games against Tennessee, but we somehow did it. And I think it's because of Barry Odom after the burning of the playbook and all the stuff that he burned that night. Yeah. I think it's because of how he's just changed the mindset of these players. It's been a different story for Mizzou ever since the Idaho week and how they've just progressed as the year's gone on.
No doubt. If we're going purely off accolades, I think Brett Bielema and the Razorbacks get this advantage. He's gone to 3 Rose Bowls. All at Wisconsin, had 4 double-digit wins. All at Wisconsin. Guess what? 0 of both of those at Arkansas. Obviously, the SEC doesn't go to Rose Bowls, but still, haven't got to a major bowl, not even a double-digit win season. I think the most wins they've had is 8. Might be wrong, might be 7, but I like Mizzou and Barry Odom just based on the pure player backing and actually just school backing. I mean, Jim Sturk, even when we were 1-5 as a team beginning of the year, Jim Sturk was still backing him. Barry Odom, that is, and the AD at Arkansas just got fired, right?
Right.
So Bielema might be well on his way, just like Butch Jones and Jim McElwain were in the SEC.
Inside source, I got an inside source from Arkansas telling me that Brett Bielema is going to be gone after this year. I'm not surprised by it. No Arkansas fan should be surprised by it. But whenever you every team you go up against, except for the first game, which is like a FCS team, when you let a team every team that you go up against score 20 points or more against you, you're not looking good. When Coastal Carolina scores 20. I want to get this right. I want to say it's 22 points against you. 38 points against you. I apologize.
That's a big difference.
Big, huge difference. But when Arkansas can only win by 1 point against a team like Coastal Carolina, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah.
And you're playing in one of the hardest conferences in all of college football in the SEC. You need to bring your A game. And Brett Bielema has not brought that here at Arkansas. And Wisconsin may have been happy to get rid of Brett Bielema because of how he's transpired here in Arkansas.
Yeah. I mean, last week seemed like a last stand for Arkansas.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they played Mississippi State tough, highly ranked opponent in the Bulldogs, but the Bulldogs lost as well last night to Ole Miss in that Egg Bowl. But that seemed like the last straw for Brett Bielema and the Razorbacks to me. Now they're not bowl eligible. What do these players have to play for, really? I mean, especially if you're seniors and juniors, most of the guys probably playing in this game, they don't care. They're like, all right, we're gone. Bielema's gone. Why are we still playing? So, yes, it's a rivalry game, but it's a new rivalry game. There's not that history behind it. I don't see much motivation here coming in for the Razorbacks, even if they were even talent-wise, which they aren't.
You're right. I totally agree with you, and I think, that's why I think we give it to Barry Odom here. It's because of how he's been able to be that player's coach that players love to be playing for, unlike Brett Bielema, I think.
Yeah, so we're both taking Mizzou in this one. Getting ready to kick off here. A quick score prediction for this game.
Okay, I'm gonna go with 52-20. I feel like there's gonna be some just sloppy plays. I feel like Arkansas is gonna get somehow 2 touchdowns in the mix and 2 field goals. But I think it's gonna be a lot of big plays for Mizzou. I think Witter's gonna have at least 2 touchdowns, whether it's receiving or rushing. I feel like I'm gonna call that as well. Mm-hmm. And I think 4 touchdown passes for Drew Lock is what's gonna be occurring today.
Yeah, I mean Mizzou has scored over 40 points the last 6 weeks.
Which is incredible.
And absolutely incredible. And the defense has been playing a lot better since that Georgia game where they let up 53 points. It's been basically the same score the last 3 weeks. I mean, go back 3 weeks to Florida, 45-16 win for Missouri. Week after that, Tennessee, 50-17, and then 45-17. 45 seems to be the magic number. I'm going to go 45-10 Mizzou. We're getting ready to get kicked off. Any last thoughts?
No, I mean, go Tigers, MIZ, baby.
Yep. So we'll be back for halftime. Thanks for watching.